What's going on, everybody? I'm back at it again with another video. This one's going to be a little bit different since it's more of a podcast type video. And I want to continue the series where it's just more car news that I want to talk about and just kind of give my perspective on it. And honestly, it's not really meant to be taken serious because, I'm only 20 years old. What is a 20-year-old going to know about the car industry? And it is kind of a ripoff of Salamandrin's Let's Talk About Cars, Yo. So Salamandrin, if you happen to be watching this for some godforsaken reason, don't sue me, because I just really miss those type of videos. So, without further ado, let's talk about cars, yo. Shit, I don't think I can really say that. I gotta think of something else here. What about commence discussion about vehicles, homie? You know what? That's good enough. Hit it. Alright, so for today's video, I have an interesting topic. I want to talk about what Tesla's biggest runner-up or possibly even one-to-one competitor could be. And right out of the box you're probably thinking, oh, it could be maybe Rivian, Lordstown Trucks, Li Autos, hell even Volvo at this point since they're getting into the EV game. And I'm going to say no to all of those. I think Fisker Inc. is going to be the next runner-up to Tesla, and I'll explain why. But before I do, let's go into a little bit of background of Fisker. Who is Henrik Fisker and kind of what led him to start up this car brand for the second time. So Henrik Fisker is a pretty notable car designer, and he's been in the automotive industry for about 20 plus years. He's created some notable vehicles such as the BMW Z8, the Aston Martin V8 Vantage, and V12 Vantage, and I'm pretty sure that design language carried over to the Aston Martin DBS and the DB9. So just right off the bat, you know that this guy knows what he's doing when it comes to designing cars. After his time designing cars for some notable brands, he branched off on his own and decided to take on some coach building. Essentially what coach building is where you take a vehicle that's already created and you create something new out of it based on that platform. So the two vehicles that he did it with was the 2010, or I think the E63 BMW M6, and I think the basically that same era of Mercedes SL55 or SL63 AMG. And honestly, I think both of them turned out really well. The only thing that's not too nice about that is the price tag back in the day. The M6 version, there was only two ever produced, and that would run you about $350,000 for that package. The M6 back then was about $120,000, and tacking on Fisker's price tag another $250,000, depending on options obviously. Same thing with the Mercedes SL, I'm not sure about the official figures on it, but all I know is that it's a really nice looking car, and that Fisker treatment was also brought to the interior, making it a little bit better than the standard Mercedes, or standard BMW at the time. After that, Fisker worked as a design consultant, I believe, for Tesla, and he worked on the Model S project. Now this is where it kind of gets a little bit dicey. Fisker wanted to start Fisker Automotive, his own car company at that time, and he wanted to create a plug-in hybrid. Which is, a little bit of conflict of interest right there, as you can tell, because, Tesla's an EV company. So, with the design that he was working on for the Model S, apparently the Fisker Karma, which was his first car under his car brand, was what the Tesla Model S was supposed to look like. And Elon Musk actually sued him for keeping the good designs for himself and leaving Tesla with a subpar design in comparison. And honestly, both of those cars were pretty good looking, there's nothing too bad about them. But the Fisker Karma took it and pretty much elevated what the Model S was. And that's kind of why you got into some heated water over it. After that, he decided to go full force with Fisker Automotive, and shortly after, they went bankrupt. Mainly because at that time was the Great Recession, and nobody could really justify spending six figures on a brand new car that doesn't really have any dealer networks. And honestly, it's a plug-in hybrid at the end of the day. So electric vehicles back then, a lot of people had concerns about range anxiety. We didn't have superchargers everywhere, that you could go and charge up your car. Another big concern for Fisker, especially towards the end of his run with Fisker Automotive, was the quality control issues. After Fisker's, the company that he was outsourcing the batteries from, or getting the batteries and the electric drivetrain from, it was a Chinese company and they happened to go bust. And around about that time is when the quality started to fail as well, just in general with the interior components, hell, I think even some exterior components, and a lot of people just were turned off by that, especially if you're spending, six figures for a car. You're expecting quality when you're spending that kind of money. And shortly after, Fisker Automotive went bankrupt. After that, Fisker kind of went under the radar, and he did a couple other projects where he created I think it was called the VLF Force EP.1 V10, which was a coach-built Dodge Viper, and actually Aston Martin sued Fisker over the VLF Force V10 design because they claimed that it looked too similar to Aston Martin's of prior. And honestly, I think that's a really pointless argument to make because car designers, they typically have their own design language and it's going to be carried over into other projects regardless. And at the end of the day, he won that lawsuit because it clearly does not look like an Aston Martin V8 Vantage or V12 Vantage of the time. And I think the last notable project that he created was the Galpin Auto Sport Rocket, I believe it was called, which was based on the Mustang GT500 or the GT350. I don't remember which one. I know I should have done my homework on it. Don't judge me on that. And then a couple years after is when Fisker Inc. was brought back to the public view, where Fisker wanted to give a second crack at creating a electric vehicle company. And this was especially notable because a lot of people don't have any faith in Fisker, let's be honest here. After the first round of failure and countless lawsuits against him, I can especially tell why people didn't believe in him. And even me, I started college at around about that time. It was 2019, end of 2019, I believe. Even I had some doubts that, Fisker was kind of crazy for trying this again. But I think this time around he might have a better shot at it. So the new Fisker Ocean Ev, which is an SUV, if you take a look at the specs on the website, the price is going to be really low, and I think that's going to be a big factor that's going to draw a lot of people in, especially people that have been wanting a cheaper entry point for a Tesla, and Tesla doesn't exactly have that. If you want to sacrifice some bells and whistles, by all means be my guest, but that's not the reason why you buy a car like that. Sure, it is going to be the basic version of the Ocean EV. There's going to be several other versions that I think go up to around about $70,000, but this base model is going to start at around about $36,000, and I think after the federal tax credit, it brings it down to a whopping $29,000, which is way cheaper than any Tesla. Or any new Tesla. I mean, let's be honest, there's a lot of cheap ones out there. I don't think that's a safe idea to go with it, unless you're rich rebuilds and, you disassemble electric cars on the daily. Now, I kind of want to address some of the short sides of Fisker compared to Tesla and why I think it can just be a excellent runner-up and not a one-to-one, fighter with the heavy hitter Tesla. In the 10 years that Fisker's been out of the game, Tesla has gone through their struggle of quality control issues. We had that whole thing of,
the panel gaps are 1 centimeter apart in this corner and it just doesn't fit well and it looks horrible.
Yeah. Tesla was able to get past that initial mark where you did have some quality control issues, let's be completely honest here. And on top of that, Tesla has gotten to the point where their technological advancements are coming out at such a rapid rate that with Fisker's infrastructure, I don't think they would be able to keep up with that. And on top of that, you have Tesla superchargers at pretty much every metropolitan area, and there's multiple of them. They also have their own app to go and find these superchargers. And I know a lot of other electric vehicles, they have their own charging stations, which have been integrated into gas stations or shopping mall parking lots, etc. But when you're paying for an exclusive product, it's kind of nice to see that brand be carried over into the things that you use daily. Again, it's that whole brand recognition thing. When you're driving a Tesla, it's cool to see that you're being supported by the company. And by support, I mean you're driving up to a supercharger that has the Tesla nameplate on it. It's kind of like an exclusive right, in a sense. Like, I paid for this privilege to use this facility, almost. That's kind of how I see it, and that's kind of my perspective of it. Another thing that's going to bring down Fisker, for sure, is definitely the brand reputation. As I discussed before, a lot of people, they didn't have any faith in Fisker starting again, and yet he's still going through with it, even through this weird pandemic era where there's a lot of supply chain shortages. Everything is very hyperinflated, and again, I'm not smart enough to even talk about those kind of things, so we'll just kind of leave it at that. But I did want to talk about where Fisker might be able to pull ahead of Tesla, and this is a very far stretch, and I don't think Fisker will do this. Going back to Fisker's history, Fisker was coach building vehicles for a very long time. He's got about 10-15 years worth of experience, whether it's just one-offs or, a small lot of vehicles that were coach built by him and his design team or whatever it was. I was thinking if you were able to apply that concept strictly to EVs, that might open up a whole different market of people that become interested in Fisker and his products. For example, when Tesla had their issues with bad build quality, if Fisker was able to coach build cars at that time and create something amazing on top of Tesla's already good mechanical infrastructure on the vehicle, I think it could turn out into something pretty nice. If we look at coach building in general, just like for the regular gas-powered vehicles, you have some pretty big giants in the industry. I believe Pininfarina has coach-built some cars. Zagato has coach-built a lot of cars, especially for Aston Martin. They've also coach-built a few Carrera GTs as well, which is not a lot of people know about that, and it's a pretty cool-looking car. And again, this is just my opinion, but I feel like it would open a whole nother market of, wealthy people who are willing to pay that extra couple $100,000 to create something new that nobody else has, and it's just like a one-off. But it's based on an infrastructure that can be easily serviced at a Tesla authorized repair place, essentially. So Fisker can put his design out there, he can be known for creating amazing cars, but he doesn't have to worry about creating a dealer infrastructure or taking care of vehicles that he's created. And that's just kind of my thoughts on Fisker. I kind of wanted to wrap this video off and talk about some other companies that could take that runner-up spot. You definitely have Rivian. I know a lot of people have seen on Instagram and other social media sites of people finally taking delivery of their Rivian trucks or SUVs. They do look really cool, and I've not done enough research honestly to talk about that, so we'll just leave it at that. Lordstown Trucks, they could be a runner-up depending on how good their product is. Granted, we've not seen really anything from them, but that's just kind of something to keep in the back of our heads. Li Autos is definitely big in China. They have, I believe, a range of sedans and SUVs available, and I've heard pretty good things about them. I know Salamandran, he's even reviewed the Li Autos SUV on his channel. It was like one of the last videos he made for his English subscribers. Another runner-up, which I think would do well, is Volvo. So Volvo has created some pretty great cars in the past couple of years after their transition from Ford to Geely, which is another Chinese-based company. Now Volvo, they introduced a plug-in hybrid powertrain known as the T8. So that takes a twin-charged 4-cylinder and mates it with a couple of electric motors and an electric battery to output about 400 horsepower. So it has the best of forced induction and electric power. And now that they're switching over to strictly electric vehicles soon in the future, I think taking the already great Volvo design language, great interior quality, and mixing it up with electric vehicles is definitely going to push them as a competitor to Tesla, but it's just something that's a little bit different. And on top of that, Volvo has established dealer networks all over the US, or essentially all over the world at this point. Volvo is a very big brand. And the last one I wanted to talk about was NIO. I'm pretty sure everyone knows NIO for the ultra hypercar that they had featured on the Grand Tour, which was a fully electric hypercar. And it was pushing some astounding numbers. I don't exactly remember all of them, but if you want to, please take a look at that video. It was pretty cool to see on the track. And I think once that technology starts trickling down into passenger vehicles that are available for the mass market for a cheaper price, I think NIO could do especially well. Alright, and that's the end of the first podcast. Let me know how you guys think I did in the comments below. I know that I didn't really have all the facts and figures, but it's just something I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to talk about that coach building aspect that Fisker could possibly do. I just thought it was a cool idea. It was again one of those like crazy shower thoughts that you have, but I think a lot of people would kind of enjoy toying with that idea. Thank you for listening, and thank you for watching.